Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Kenny Mofanua from the YOO's podcast. Before we start our episode, just want to remind everyone to visit our website at www.yoos.com. Every purchase helps us continue to share these wonderful stories. Thanks for your support. And now let's get into it.
Yeah, you fire off. You fire off, and I'll answer them to the best of my ability and provide the goal, especially on these platforms, and especially as I mentioned on behalf of our coaches, is to strive to be of value, strive to provide whatever knowledge and gems that's needed. I like to share a lot of the not so much the wins, but the instead of losses, the lessons along the way in real time. That way, is that we're experiencing it that with hopes that whatever part of the entrepreneur journey that our folks is on, that they too can benefit from. So yeah, brother, again, thank you so for having me on, man. And I'm ready. Whatever questions you want me to ask, I'm here.
Entrepreneurs, creators sharing their views. Listen on Spotify, our hearts in play. Apple's got the vibe, hit record, press play. Live on TikTok, streaming all the way. YouTube, Facebook, we're here to stay. Tales of the hustle, dreams come alive. Building the future, watch them strive. YOO's, YOO's. Tune in and vibe the drive. YOO's, YOO's. Tune in and vibe the drive.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another episode of the YOO's podcast. I'm your host, YOO's. And today's guest host, man, he's a pioneer. He's a trailblazer. You know what I'm saying? I'm really humbled and even privileged to have this Uso come on our platform. Without further ado, man, Faa'vae, thank you for coming on our platform, bro.
Thank you for having me. Excited for this podcast.
Yeah, so when I'm introducing this Trailblazers coconut, the Uso is the Polynesian inspired and fashion, the world of fashion. Something that us Samoans or just Polynesians are not too well known about. He's the founder of Island Avenue with the vision to create a brand that fuses the vibrant spirit of South Pacific with streetwear attire. Faa'vae has also established Island Avenue as a representation of both culture pride and innovation. His journey, rooted in California neighborhoods of Carson and the Bay Area, reflects a deep commitment to community, family, and resilience through Island Avenue. He's not only redefined Polynesian representation in the apparel industry, but also secured impressive partnerships with the brands that we all know of, Nordstrom and Nike. And the Uso, that's not the only thing the Uso does, man. Coconuts. The Uso is a true entrepreneur. He does more. This is just one of them things that, by the way, shout out to my wife. She's a huge fan of yours. So when I told you were coming on, Uso, he was really tripping. So there you go, honey. We made it. Do you feel the pressure of being a pioneer for the Polynesian island community in business? Do you feel any of that kind of pressure?
Great question. It was a great question. And you're not the first one to actually ask me that, especially on behalf of our Pacific Islanders. Again, thank you guys. I can't help to thank you guys so much, the Uso podcast, the Oos podcast, for having me on. I never lose sight of how important this is to share our stories, to share our entrepreneur journey, specifically with our Pacifica folks, mainly because, as you had mentioned, that there hasn't been too much, I guess you could say, success stories on the business side, right? We've been obviously very prevalent within sports and within entertainment. Now the question is how can we branch outside of those two industries and really start to trailblaze the path, specifically in business? The great thing is that as I've been able to build relationships, especially along the West Coast where a lot of our Pacifica folks are, man, there's a great entrepreneur spirit that's going on in the Bay. There's a great entrepreneur spirit especially going on in Utah. Especially in Utah. Yeah. I call it, they laugh, but I call it like, Utah is like the Atlanta for Maoris. That's like, that Utah is like for Polynesians. You know what I mean? There's so many different Polynesian folks that are in different industries. Every time I go there, to connect with those guys, there's businesses left and right. And I'm inspired. Again, based in Los Angeles, there's not too many of our folks. Yes, we have a presence here, but as far as entrepreneurship, we haven't really got the engine going. However, there's some businesses brewing. There's some businesses forming, and that's the great thing. So again, thank you guys so much for having me on the platform. And then the goal is to really share the journey with viewers that are tuning in from all over the world, because I believe the OOS podcast is going to be a global podcast soon, right? Brick by brick. But to answer your question, News, did I ever feel pressure? No, actually, I haven't. I haven't, because the simple fact that as I started to go upon this entrepreneur journey, yes, it's one of those things that I knew what I was signing up for. I knew that the industries that I was going into, that we didn't have a presence there. However, that was the goal, is to be able to open up those doors, build those relationships, do great business at a high level, and then that way we leave the door open for the next generation to come. So there really wasn't no pressure. These were industries, specifically with apparel. Then we got some stuff in the restaurant. We're doing some stuff in real estate. But these are industries that I was very passionate about. Now, truth be told, as I attack these other industries outside of apparel, it's not like I'm reinventing the wheel. A majority of the time, I've built relationships in these other industries. So now all I'm doing is connecting with those that are very good at doing business at a high level, and then just figuring out, just based off of that relationship, if in fact there's some deal there that we can actually do, right? So I'm not reinventing the wheel, right? But for the most part, it's specifically for apparel, although outside looking in, that you guys have been seeing a lot of traction that we've been able to attain thus far, but no pressure, because I really just been blessed. Truth be told, our Pacifica people have been very supportive globally, like from DMs to Texas to just online. I'm starting to see that now. Honestly, in all honesty, it's become bigger than just a clothing line. In all honesty, I don't even think people know that it's a clothing line at this point, because it's been able to supersede it, which is a great thing, right? But that was the goal. Now it's become like a beacon of hope, a lot of inspiration for our folks, mainly because we've been fortunate enough to be in these high level rooms and really start to do great collabs and great corporate partnerships at a high level. So no pressure really. And if there's any pressure, just pressure that I put on myself to make sure that I represent our people at a very high level in the most professional light.
And that's what's up. So that falls onto the next question. Your responsibilities of representing both yourself and your community in such a large platform. How does that all work out?
Oh man, I mean, as I had mentioned, like it's been an honor, and it's been several times where I've shared this on platforms like yours, as well as in personal conversations, as well as on Zoom meetings, that despite the fact that we have, physically never been in these rooms in terms of having these high level meetings with the likes of a Nordstrom's, with the likes of a Nike, in all honesty, and I say this with sincerity, is that I never felt alone. I always felt like our ancestors was going in there with me. And I always felt their presence and their energy with me. The mana was always so real when I was in these rooms. And so it's been a privilege. It's been an honor. It's a privilege that I don't take lightly. I believe it's a calling that I don't take lightly, mainly because we haven't, really done business at this level. So knowing that, I have to make sure, as I had mentioned, that the business that we do at this level is very professional. We deliver on time. We provide either a product or service at a high level. And that way, when the next Pacifica entrepreneur comes along, they have a baseline. They have a reference point to be able to refer to. Hey, we met Faa'vae. We know of Island Ave. They've done great business. We've been doing business for X amount of years. Let's give this other brand a chance, right? And then not only that, because we're going through this process, let's always refer back to apparel, that as I'm going through, I'm creating systems, right? I'm creating operations. I'm creating relationships. And so that way, when the next Polynesian entrepreneur comes and they want to do business at this level with a lot of these corporate brands, then I can give them the blueprint. I say, hey, this is what you have to have in order to perform at a high level. Make sure you have your ducks in a row before I can make that call and you can be able to land that meeting.
So it's more of networking, right? It's just the people that you surround yourself with. That's
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I've been, I've said this again on several
yeah.
platforms.
I've heard
Yeah.
you on, especially on
Yeah.
shout out to Western Conference. You know,
Yeah.
because I've
So Cisco,
it's a
and
schizo.
even before that, my hero that I spoke about of the 10 is my older brother who
Your
passed in
brother,
90.
yeah.
So
Rest in peace to your
yeah,
Uso,
rest
man.
in peace to my also, man. And the reason why I bring him up is because I didn't know this at the time, but as a kid, by example, he showed me how to build authentic relationships with just his friends, right?
Yeah.
And the great thing about it, growing up in Los Angeles, and specifically Carson, we had such a multicultural community. So it wasn't just Samoans that he was building friendships with. Filipino, Mexico, like, oh, Palangi, like he had literally the United Nations of friends. And so through that example, from afar, I saw like, wow, like he, although he had his reputation in the street, he was very driven off of building loyal, genuine, authentic relationships. So I took that, and along my path, whether it was high school, whether it was college, and even after that, what I decided to do was emulate that. Right? He exemplified how to build great relationships, and so in business, it came full circle now because now as I need either an attorney or some business advice or mentor. Now it's just a matter of if I build great relationships, it's just a matter of a phone call at that point and being able to get that person on the phone and say, hey, I need some advice on this deal. How would you do the deal? Do you know anyone else that I could speak with or whatnot? So relationships have been huge for me in terms of any of the success that I've had in business because of the fact that we built a great name. And I recently read a book. It's by Sam Zell. Sam Zell at one point owned pretty much all the apartments in the United States. And so he's considered one of, a great entrepreneur of the 21st century. And he wrote a book called Am I Being Too Subtle? And he's known for what they refer to as the Godfather deal. He basically offloaded the whole portfolio right before the '08 collapse. And he sold it to a big firm called Blackstone. I throw out these names, I throw out these deals because I'm planting a seed for our folks, right? I
Yes.
study business at a high level. The JP Morgan Chases, the Jamie Dimon, David Rubenstein, the Carlyle Group, Larry Fink, BlackRock, Steven Schwarzman, Blackstone. These are high-level chairmen that do business at a high level, and they move the needle from a global standpoint. So I study them, their autobiographies and whatnot. So I've recently finished Sam Zell's book. He's a Jewish man, successful Jewish entrepreneur. Some of my mentors are Jewish here in the Los Angeles, Orange County area. And there's a term in Hebrew called Shem Tov, and it basically means a good name. And so the reason why I bring that up is because I was taught that from my older brother that you are who whatever it is that you say you are, you have to be a man and a person of your word, a person of integrity, honesty, and honor. Like these are old school principles that man was taught. And not only that, how you do one thing is how you do everything. And so that also spilled over into his business life. He wouldn't compromise that. And he shared several different examples along his entrepreneur journey where they were trying to compromise those principles, and he wouldn't let them do it because he was built on strong principles, right? So, relationships, again, being able to, if you know me personally, these are the same principles that I exemplify in business, right? I'm only doing business with people that have the same values, right? Even there's another question like, well, when you go into, the restaurant business or real estate with all the film that we're doing, how do you know to pick these specific people if in fact there's different groups that you could do business with? The first thing is, do we share the same values, right? Meaning,
Value matters.
yeah, is this a guy that still goes out and I was like, bro, I'm not doing that. I've lived that life, right? I need to know that we're on the same page because if in fact we have meetings on Monday and you're barking at the Kalapu on Sunday night, I don't even know if you're going to show up. Like these are like everyday examples. So if in fact our values align, then that's already like a criteria of mine, like an underwriting criteria of mine. Like, okay, we got great values. I've seen that they've done great business. They have a great reputation within real estate. I've done my due diligence. I've prayed about it. I think we're going to go with this group to actually do these specific deals, right? So it goes back to relationship. I'm a relationship-driven person. And in any industry that I've gone into, it's been a matter of me building great relationships that are people that are doing business at a high level, and it's just a matter of a phone call.
Damn, coconuts, if you ain't listening, man, the Uso has just dropped a whole bunch of gems. In other words, stop the bullshit. You know what I'm saying? Like,
And
and
you know, there's a
go
great
ahead.
quote. There's a great quote that I have. You know, I shared, and there was a guy, that football guy that shared. I don't know the original person who created it, is show me your friends and I'll show you your future. You know,
Mm,
so whoever you're around now, I can
yes.
basically just tell from afar. You walk in the room with a couple cats, I can already tell because because basically what you're telling me is that okay, these are the type of people you hang around. This is the type of energy that you're willing to put out based off of these people that you hang around. You're giving them the okay for them to be around you. And if these aren't, let's just call it A1 type people, then it just tells me a lot about you. Right? Now, again, there's no knock on that. That's just a choice you decide to make. Right? So if in fact you walk in the room and there's high level folks that you decided to build relationships with, you've already told me what type of time you all right. So in my mind, I take a mental note of that. Okay, cool. This is probably somebody we could build with. Right. So those relationships that you build now, people that you're around, where you're allocating your day-to-day energy towards, it says a lot about you. Right. We all are given the same 24 hours, but where are you allocating that energy towards? Right. And then what's the return on investment in that? So I tell people all the time, even family members, if you're not happy about where you're at from a personal standpoint or a business standpoint at this point, okay, look at who you're around. What is your day-to-day regimen? Because that's what produced the result that we're in today. And
Yep.
if you don't like that, then change the regimen, change the people that you're around, right? And then there's another question that came up as I was going throughout my journey. They were like, were there people that you had to cut off? Like, all these, and I was like, no. And that's no, I really didn't. Because for one, what people don't know is that I'm actually a private person by nature. Okay. And so, second, going back to, in reference to my older brother, he had taught me that we build very authentic, strong relationships with great people. So my circle is very, very small. So the people that technically are still around are my childhood friends that were with me 40 years ago when we were first coming up, right? So with that being said, and then not only that, it's like I always say this, that even my childhood friends that are still part of the journey, it's just as I started to go down this journey that we just weren't going down the same freeway. They were still supportive of it, but we were just going in different directions,
Hmm.
right? So in essence, the crazy thing is if we continue to elevate in business, what ends up happening is those people that can't contribute to the goal, by default, they have to fall by the wayside because you bring no value to the journey,
Yes.
right? If you're trying to build a multi-million dollar business and there's a family or a friend or a close friend or whatever, at some point that person has to ask, the Ooze podcast wants to be the next Joe Rogan podcast. Can I contribute to that goal? Right? They're going to have to ask that. And if in fact they can't contribute, they're going to cut themselves off just by default because they see where you're going. Right. And
Yes.
then they let them go, you know
I'm
what?
witnessing that too as
Yeah,
well.
right. It's like I can't even contribute to those. I want to be there, but there's no value that I can contribute to it. So I just got to fall back, and I will support from afar.
Yeah.
So some of my childhood friends to this day, still my usos, they support from afar. But as far as like a day to day contribution, we're going on two different paths. So I didn't have to like cut anyone off, and I'm not that kind of person anyway. Right.
You answered all that. I was gonna say so when do you what about for us, like for myself? I'm gonna use myself as an example. I'm in this area of like your mindset that I do want to be the Samoan version of Joe Rogan.
There you go.
And I see that I'm still working a 9 to 5 because obviously haven't got a contract, do these big business like Unc Shay and all of them to be on ESPN or be on TV. I'm waiting for that. But while I'm doing that, I'm still working that 9 to 5. And I feel like my 9 to 5 is really kind of like slowing me down. What's your advice for somebody like myself? Like, do I stop? But I still need the job for the time being, because I am a married man and I have children and
Yeah.
I got, I got to support the family, man. It's just one of them things. I'm at the edge right now to where I feel like, man, should I really just put all my? Am I not fully committed to make this Why Oos podcast? You know what I'm saying? Go further, because I mean, it started off as a podcast, but now it's starting to be a media, and I'm just like, dang, just doors are getting open, just meeting different people. What's your advice, Oos?
Well, first off, it goes back to priorities, right? So I
Hmm.
was in that same, just so everyone that's either viewing this or listening to this, every entrepreneur is at that fork in the road. Okay. So I
Yeah.
was in 2018. Okay. Prior to that, again, I have a family as well, wifey and my son. And so same thing, we're in the same position. Bills got to get paid, son got to eat, right? And so in 2018, I was, technically running. I was doing my on and off stuff and clothing stuff on the side, and it was really more of an afternoon type job that I was running a gym here in Orange County, and so it paid the
Yes.
bills, right? But the great thing about it is, ironically, though it was more of a high end gym because the majority of the families that were bringing their kids lived in affluent areas. And so these were successful business folks that I got to talk to on a one-to-one basis. But not only that, the great positive and advantage was they heard about my son because we're in Orange County, modern day being big powerhouse, is that my son was balling at the time. So it was almost like, oh, I want to take my son to Faa'vae, his son is balling, so on and so forth. In essence, I ended up building this relationship with these successful businesses. And then I started to really get into their minds of when was the fork in the road in their journey? And then they shared it with me. Oh, 10
Yes.
years ago or 20 years ago, I had a family, I was doing both 9 to 5. And then at some point, you had to say, you know what? If I'm really going to do this, I gotta, I really gotta, make a move. And so 2018 came, spoke to wifey, and I said, man, it's coming to that point, right?
Hmm.
We had a heart to heart. I understood the overhead that we had at home. I literally calculated, right? And this is probably a great gem for you as well as those that are listening. I said, okay, what do we need on a bare minimum at home to pay these bills? Okay, make sure the son is taken care of, cell phone bill, light, rent. What is that bare minimum number that I know I have to hit just to make sure that's taken care of, right? And once I knew that, then I just work on my way backwards. Okay, so I knew that number, got buy-in from wifey, right? She was literally egging me on, like, "Oh, you scared? You ain't gonna do it. You ain't gonna do it, right?" And I said, "Oh, I'm gonna do it, right?" And then before we made the decision, obviously prayer and family. What I did was I said, "Okay, if in fact we're gonna go down this road," I created a game plan, and then I said, "Look, I remember going into the office that day, and and she knew I was kind of hinting to the lady. She was the general manager. I was running the gym. I was hinting to her. I was like, "Look, it's coming to that point," because I knew of the owners of the gym. One of them, my mentor to this day. I just literally had lunch with them about a month ago. Okay, big private equity guys. And I said, "Look, man, although we had great success here, I don't own this gym. I can't pass this gym on to my son. This is not my asset. It's theirs."
Yes.
Okay. Right. So any success that comes out of this is that they own it, not me. Okay. So in essence, at some point, I was hinting to her, I got to walk away. So I never forget that day. I think it was June of 2018. I walked in, she looked at me and she just started crying. And she was like, "Is today the day?" And I said, "Yeah, today's the day." So, but prior to that, I've already been in talks with wife. Okay. I felt
Yeah.
like there
You
were
got it.
signs coming up to that. I did the calculations, and this is a good business strategy, I guess, because I still utilize that to this day. I did the calculations, how much overhead that I need to cover to make sure at the least the bills are paid. Okay. Did that number. So I knew every 30 days I got to hit this number to make sure wifey don't look at me crazy. You feel me?
I love
Right?
that. I
You
love
get
that.
what I'm saying?
I like that.
So I just looked at it and I said, so whether I save that number to give me a little runway for 6 months, or I just say, I'm jumping off the porch and I just got to go eat what I kill. Either way, I knew my number. And as long as wifey and I was on the same page, she was like, all right, let's get it. So strategized, knew my number, went in there. Again, this is another great thing, being a man of your word, being a person of integrity, building
Yes.
relationship. I could have easily just called her. Hey, not coming in. I'm done. No, I walked in there because we built a great relationship. I was there for 5 years. I grew. I built great relationships there. So I told her, hey, unfortunately, this is it. I thank you so much for the opportunity, but I'm going to take my chances in building and going on this entrepreneur journey because I want to build assets that I could pass on to my kids, to my family. And there's no way I could do it here. I think I've learned enough. I think I built great, enough relationships. Now I got to make this move. And so from there, closed that chapter. And since 2018, it's been full time. Now, granted, I always want to say this, full disclosure, it hasn't been perfect. Okay. It hasn't been rosy. There's been some months where it's good. And some months it's like,
Yes.
are we going to cover payroll? Are we going to cover rent there and here? Like, right. So I always want to premise, because although what you see on Instagram, you just see a person jumping off the porch and then you see the Rolls Royce. It's like, what happened in the middle? Like, how did we get there? You know? But so I want to tell everyone, like, it hasn't been a rosy ride. This has been one of the most challenging events, journeys that I've ever been on in my life. And I played football at the Division I level. Like physically, yes, that's more overbearing, but from a mental, physical, spiritual, emotional point of view, this business journey has been a very, very challenge. But that's the thing is I love it, right? I love it because unlike sports, there's no off season. For business, you're on. It's every day. It's 365. You're on. And some days you win, some days you lose. But then the great thing about it is you wake up the next morning, you get back in the ring, and you get to fight, right? So hopefully those, in terms of systems, right, that's something that you could take. That's something that the viewers and listeners could take, because I know everybody has come to that fork in the road. And again, we all got aims. Some, especially within, our Pacifica families, some of us got 3, 4, 10 kids. But yet we have this burning desire of a goal that we had before we had the family, right? That's still kind of burning inside. And I've mentored other entrepreneurs, and there was a mother along the way. She was like, man, I still have this goal. And I told her, I said, you know what? The best thing you could do for your kid is to be able to pursue that goal. Because in essence, what ends up happening is you end up lighting up. They feel the energy. Because now my host is doing a podcast and he's live and you know what I mean? Like the kids feel the energy. But when you contain it, they feel that too. Like there's something bugging dad because he's not himself, right? Because it's that desire of your own personal goal, but you had to put it on a back burner because you had to go be a father. Well, ironically, the best thing you could do for your kid is actually pursue your own goals as well. However you're going to do it, right? Because once you do that, you're living your purpose. You're living your calling, and that energy resonates and it emanates with everyone around you. Now, that's contagious. Now the kids is like, man, dad got a pep in his step, like, and they feed off of that. They feed off of that, right? So instead of, again, old school is like, like our parents came here and just, they threw their goals out the window and they had to go get a job to support the family. And then, how it is, just like, I gave my kids everything. And then in essence, at the end, they're kind of like, kind of sometimes bitter because it's like, I gave my kids everything and now I'm just stuck here and that's it, right? When in essence, it's like
people like that.
See, we witnessed that, right?
Not from my father, but I just witnessed it from other families.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's like the best thing you could do is still pursue your goals, because in essence, by you pursuing your goals, that's really your purpose. That's your calling. And when you're living in your calling, the energy that you give off on a day-to-day basis, like you light up when you do the podcast. And then the kids see that. The kids feel that. And then by example, the kids go, man, I noticed my dad, he loves the Oos podcast. He comes in there after it's done and he talks about it. They feed off of that. And then they go, whatever it is that dad is doing, I want to do that, but in my own goals. In my own purpose. You get what I'm saying? I want that same exhilarating feeling, right? Because now the kids are living in their purpose and their call, right? So just think about that energy when everybody's living in their purpose. You light up the room without even turning on the light.
And that's powerful.
You're gonna have to stop me, Hughes, because I'm gonna keep.
You good, brother. You good, man. And then from this success, right? Have you ever felt pressure to water down your cultural identity to appear to? No, you already answered that. If y'all want us, if you want more information about the USO, man, check out Cisco's podcast, man. Because
but it's definitely a point I want to reiterate.
Okay.
Right, because of the fact of this. And let me make sure that I really articulate this and emphasize this. More often than not in apparel, specifically in apparel, right? Mm-hmm. when you wear something, obviously you want to wear something to stand out. Okay.
Yes.
Because everyone's wearing whatever it is trending, right? But in apparel, if you want to stand out, you want to wear something totally different, whatever that may be. Okay. So as we come here, you know how we are. Like we're influential, but at the same time, we can follow the herd as well. Okay.
Yes.
Oh, you know what? The Middle East is doing this, Palang is doing this. I'm just gonna go and just kind of follow the trend and not do what I feel I should do. Okay. So with that said, when I was going down this road of apparel, I knew that the advantage, it didn't look like an advantage at the time, was again, there was no one in apparel that was creating a brand that combined the South Pacific as well as streetwear that was born and bred in Los Angeles. That was going to be a creative challenge, okay, because no one has done it. The second thing was the thing that I did know was there was no brands within the Northams or Macy's or Tilly's or Saks Fit that had this aesthetic. So immediately I knew that I had a competitive advantage because no one has ever done it. But the question is that even though no one has ever done it, will anyone wear it? Okay. So I knew that, okay, we do have an advantage because no one has ever really penetrated this industry. Now I had to create an aesthetic and a vibe that not only represented those two subcultures, but everybody can actually wear it. So I have to emphasize this, that we end up closing the deal with the Nike, with the Nordstrom, with Saks Fit that we're in talks with a Disney, is the fact that I doubled down on who we are as a people, who we are as a culture. Now, again, did I put the tribal everywhere, all over? No. Aesthetically, from a design point of view, I made sure that there was hints of it, okay? Whether it's on this jersey, whether it was on the varsity jacket we're releasing, whether it was on there was hints of it, that every piece always had hints of our people in it, okay? Because again, I'm trying to create a product that's universally accepted, yes, globally accepted, okay? However, to answer your question now, never, again, it's me not ever compromising who we are as a people, who I am as a human being, the culture that I represent, and the ancestors that I take in these meetings with. In no way, shape, or form will I ever compromise that. You take me as I am, or you don't take me at all. All right? And because of the fact, remember, authenticity resonates.
Yes.
It don't matter what culture it is. When you come off authentic and you speak from your heart, that always cuts through, right? That's that human to human connection. It could be anything. So I knew that if in fact I was going to tell my story and share my truth, I was going to give you everything and I was going to leave everything on the field. And whether it resonated or not, that wasn't on me at that point, right? That was between y'all and God and the market.
Amen.
I did my part at that point, right? And so a great story was when The Rock decided that he was going to do the Hollywood move. There was a couple of interviews that he had mentioned, and he had said that the first PR team and the team that he had was like, "Hey, need to lose weight. Let's not talk about wrestling anymore."
I remember that. Yeah.
Right? Okay. They talked about all these things that he wasn't supposed to do. Okay. And he goes, "Okay, cool." He did it, and he goes, "It didn't work."
Nope.
He's like, "It just didn't work." And so he looked at it and he goes, "You know what?" He goes, "I ended up firing everybody." And I said, I'm gonna give you all me, raw and uncut. Okay? And if it don't work, at least I know I can sleep at night, knowing that I gave you who I am as a human being, as a person, I gave you all I got. Okay? Samoan, Afgasi, Meuli, right? He gave you everything.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So that story is like, I don't know how anyone can't be inspired by that story, right? And it sends a message to our people, like, although we're not large in numbers, okay? We're not large in numbers. That number is coming. That number is climbing, right? But the impact that we're making, we're starting to brew. And I tell our folks all the time, right? There's a hashtag, and I shared it with you. It's our time now, right? It's our time, right? And if you notice, like, There's Polynesian folks throughout the world that are doing certain things because there's something brewing within the culture. And it's our generation, right? That it's like, okay, we've been here already. We've already migrated to the States. Our parents, like now it's like it's up to our generation to really, really get things going. And I'll never forget because, someone had told me like, why do you ever feel like discouraged and stuff? I was like, you know what? Every entrepreneur has been, has felt discouraged.
We're humans.
Yeah, we're humans. So she goes, why? Because I always talk about, all the different ethnic groups and how they have successful, Chinatown, Japantown, Filipino town. They have all these successful businesses in these communities, right? And she goes, why? Let's put things in perspective. And I'll never forget this. It was about a year ago, right? It's the Uso's wife, Nia. Shout out to Nia. And Elite Financial, shout out to the family over there in the Bay. She goes, why? But let's just put things in perspective, though, right? The ethnic groups that you talk about, they've been here for 400 years, right? Some of these ethnic groups have been here since the 1900s. We got here in the 50s, if that, 60s. So if you look at it in comparison to them, we only been here for this short amount of time. But look at the impact that we're already having. And when she said that, I stood back and I was taught a lesson that day, right? And it motivated me. She was like, I said, you're right. You're right. Even though we're not large in numbers, and even though we haven't been here in the States, meaning in the States that long, look at the impact that we're already starting to make with the numbers that we even have.
Yeah, it's a handful.
Right? It's a handful.
Yeah.
Really quantity over quality, right? So once she told me that, I was so moved. I was so inspired. I was so motivated. So yeah.
Damn. So have you faced criticism or pressure from within our own community for expanding this into a global market?
Great question.
Because us Samoans and just Polynesians, bro. Off the bullshit.
Great question. So this was asked to me, I want to say about a year and a half ago. Shout out to my Uso Cross City, my family right there, Lala, AJ, all the homies over there. There was Hawaii, everybody over there. The reason why is because every time I go to Utah, that's my headquarters. I get tatted, and then we do like a whole entrepreneur thing over there. And Uso Lala had asked me, like, man, because he comes from a big Tongan family, he's like, man, do you feel pressure, like, from our community, backlash because you've been successful and all that? So let's put it in context. Let's put it in context and really contextualize your question. Take it a step back. As I had mentioned, I'm a private person by nature, okay? Second thing, unlike, I've always said this, the second thing is, unlike maybe your family, Lala's family, Frost's family, I don't have a big extended Samoan family.
You mentioned that, yeah.
Right? So I probably got two relatives, right? So I don't, right? So to say that there's going to be this pressure or maybe Faa'vae or like all this, gibber. Again, I never came from that. So when I jumped in this, I jumped into entrepreneurship knowing that, for one, no one's coming to save me. Two, I knew that there wasn't going to be no support because our people weren't even in the industry, right? So when you operate from the mentality of you're going in this wholehearted to represent our people, you're going into this alone, and the simple fact that our culture hasn't caught up to it, then in all honesty, you're not expecting any of that. If in fact there's support, great, right? If there's backlash, in all honesty, and I say this from a universal standard, okay? There's a couple of young kids as well as Lala. The way I responded was, I said, let me ask you something. How do you know online that there's negativity? And they were like, well, what do you mean? Like, no, tell me, like, how do you know that someone said something bad about you or your brand? You're like, oh, I read it in the comments. I said, okay, cool. So let me just ask you this. If I never read the comments, does it exist? And he was like, oh, damn, I guess not, right? It's like, I said, exactly. I said, what I'm trying to tell you is that all I can do from a personal standpoint is just put out great energy, build great relationships, be of service, and put out great energy. Okay, are we living in the perfect world? No. If people are gonna say something sideways on the internet, absolutely, because that's the internet. But for the most part, like, has there been any negativity, especially from our folk? Absolutely not. It's been very supportive because to me, it was from a personal standpoint, I strive on a day-to-day basis to put out great energy. Okay. So 98, 99% of the people, even from our people to just from a global perspective, has been all positive. However, I tell people today, if in fact there's negativity that does come back, you should probably look at yourself in the mirror. Like, what are you doing to actually engage in that?
Yeah.
What are you doing to actually emanate that? Right? Like, really, like, focus in on it. But in essence, like, in all honesty, I mean, for the most part, because of the arenas that we've been in, everybody's been very, very supportive, right? And then to answer the second part of Lala's question, I said, I always go back to having been a former, ball player and coming from a family of ball players. I said, let me ask you this, dog. I said, when you was in the game, was you worried about people in the stands? Could you hear them in the stands? And he looked at me, he was like, no. I said, yeah, exactly. Like, dog, we in the game. Nigga, don't talk unless you in the game. Mm-hmm. You feel me? Like, I ain't worried about what's on the sideline. I know in the stands. Like, get in the game, right? We in the game. We in the trenches, dog. Like, I ain't worried about that. And then not only that, bro, I'm trying to build a multi-million-dollar global brand. Any negativity,
you ain't trying, Deuce.
Yeah, right?
I am. You are right? building. You building, bro.
Global multi-million-dollar brand.
Yes.
Anything that's not contributing to this. This is going back to our initial part of this conversation. Anything and anyone that's not contributing to that has to move out the way.
Amen to that.
Period. Right? So if there's any comments or whatnot, I don't even buy into it. I don't even give it no energy. Because in order, just like in cancer, like, if you understand the concept of cancer, in order for cancer to actually live in the actual physiologically within a human being, you have to feed it. Think about that. Because it's a parasite. So a cancer has to be fed. So whatever the food that you're actually feeding it, it needs glucose to be fed so it can actually multiply into a tumor. So what I'm saying is negativity is the same thing. Unless you feed it, right? It resonates. But if I don't contribute to it on a day-to-day basis, like, bro, like, and again, I have to harp on this, yo. If you're trying to do something for the first time for your people, you got no time to even contribute to any of that. Period.
The negativity, man. You
any of that. There. Like, I got no time for that. Like, right? We trying to win the championship, and you talking about what? Come on, bro. Like,
you talking about practice?
You talking about practice? Come on, dog. Got no time for that. Feel me? I'm trying to help. Trying to inspire my community. Talking about that? I ain't got no time for that.
Speaking of community, Bruce, you hear it a lot from Polynesians. And every race is the same, though. But why is it difficult? You say, do you see it coming soon where the brown excellence is going to happen? Like how the black has came up in Atlanta, like you mentioned, Utah. Shout out to Utah, because I've always told my nephews who lives in Utah, I'm like, Oos, you realize Utah is the Mecca? Because I compare it to New York, you know what I'm saying, for Polynesians. And he's like, I don't know, Unc. I'm like, you need to look up, man, because there's a whole bunch of them out there that's doing their thing. And if I was to do my podcast and really try to go into it, I'll be going to Utah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But obligations and stuff like that. Anyways, where do you see us right now with the Polynesians coming together? Are there brown excellence out there who are working together to build this thing? Because
Absolutely. Yeah. So obviously, we all know that, you get polys together, there's always going to be tension, right? There's always going to be who's better.
There's
always going to be that, okay? Yeah. Let me make this very, very clear. Let me make this very clear. That's not a Samoan thing, Polynesian.
Yeah, that's a
human. That's a human thing, okay? I remember talking to a Samoan entrepreneur, and he was adamant, man. He was very persistent. No, man, it's only our people that does this. And I looked at him and was like, I really beg to differ. And although you're very convicted in your feelings, all I'm telling you is that my business partners to date are non-poly.
Yeah.
And they tell me they face the same thing in their community. Yeah. This is what I was trying to verbalize to them. right? I'm telling him, like, this dude, he was just adamant about it. I said, bro, I'm not going to change your mind. But what I'm saying is, I've dealt with different entrepreneurs from different ethnic groups, okay? And it's a human thing, right? So when knowing that, I take that in any interaction that I have from a business standpoint with our folks, I over deliver. Okay. Give you an example. The business that I have, whether it's us shipping out orders on Island Ave side, but we also have a manufacturing facility in which we print, screen printing, directed garment, DTL, embroidery, right? Anytime I have a Samoan or Polynesian client, I have to over deliver. Because what I'm trying to do is I'm sending a message that in order for us to do business at a high level, this is the way it works. Period. That's it. Right? So I'm setting examples because this, by doing that, that sets us up to have Pacifica excellence. Right? So the more we do that within each other, the Us has his podcast, the homegirl has a restaurant, I have the apparel going, the homie Hailame got the real estate going. Like the more we start to do business amongst each other and do great business, and business with integrity, the more we build as a people, and that's how Pacifica excellence is born, right? But truth be told, it's happening. It's happening. It's not at a grand scale just yet, but it is happening because I'm doing it with our folks, right? But at some point, you're gonna see a lot of us, at a high level, okay, and visually seeing us together and really building up the community that way. But yes, it is happening. It's brewing. I'm honored to be a part of that, right? And contributing to that. But I tell you, just by example, when I'm doing business with our folks, I always try to over deliver because I'm sending a message like, this is how business is actually done, and we can't lose sight of that, right? So hopefully that answers your question there.
Yeah, it does. When you're saying over delivery, what do you mean by that?
So if in fact someone orders something, like we got a fill order for Island Ave this week, right? There's clients of mine that want their order, they have an event coming this week. And if, maybe there's a Faa'vae and they want, shirts for the person, family member that passed away, right? They submit the artwork. I submit the quote, they pay. I want to make sure instead of waiting for Friday, I say, pick up the order tomorrow. It's done. Great quality, great turnaround time, great communication. It meets their needs, right? So great customer service all the way around. Okay. So I try in business, in my business interaction, especially with our people, is I try to set the bar so high. That way, when they do business with other people, they go, I remember this. I remember dealing with Faa'vae. And there was a standard. We don't go below that standard. And the only reason why I say that is when I'm dealing with affluent business partners or clients, this is how they do business. This is just the game, right? Yeah. They ask for a quote, I send the invoice, they pay, the game starts, right? There's no, we're going to have a phone and we're going to talk, none of that, right? You know what I mean? Like, this is how they do business. So I'm trying to exemplify that and show our people that this is how, how it's done. And if you want to do business at a high level, especially with these type of clients, this is the system. But you have to over deliver. And a lot of the times, I want to say this, and this is maybe a taboo thing to say. Okay, Uzo? Oh, you can't do business with your own people. I say, oh, is that right? Okay, it's been said. Okay, I've seen it in different arenas. And my response to that is this, for one, I think it's unfair. And the reason why I think that statement is unfair is because it's not like it's not like we have, let's just call it 100,000 successful Samoan or Pacifica entrepreneurs that you can make this blanketed statement and say, you can't do a business for successful Samoans because I've been burned 50 million times. No, we don't even have a pool of entrepreneurs to even say that.
Don't have the data for it. Yep, that's
right. We don't have that many to even say that. Now, I also want to say is this. I know of some trifling Polynesian entrepreneurs that did business together and then they burned each other, right? And then this whole stigma starts to snowball and say, hey, you can't do business with your own people. No. Y'all shouldn't have been doing business, period. Because both of y'all was traveling. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And because we have such a small pool of entrepreneurs, that stigma starts to float around, right? Which goes back to what I just said. When our people decide that they want to come do business with Faa'vae, I make sure that I over deliver. I make sure that I do business at a high level because I'm sending a message that you can do business with your own people if it's done the right way. Because I'm trying to overcome that stigma that's been out there. So I had to put that out there.
Man, I appreciate that. So real quick, because of time, and I know you're a businessman, so I had a ton of other questions, but we're just gonna cut it. We like to keep it at 45 minutes because of the sake of, like you said, it's business, right? Keeping it professional, keeping it short and sweet, and just trying to pique the curiosity of our coconuts. My last question is, say for Waiu's podcast, right? I come to you and I offer you, I'm asking for a negotiate, like a deal. Can you put us on game? Like, what is the expectation that we're supposed to prepare ourselves to come to somebody like yourself as far as sponsorship, as far as wearing your merch on the podcast? Can you give us some information on that?
So great question, right? Before you approach someone like myself
Mhm.
for a sponsorship or any type of deals like that, okay? What you have to show is what value you bring to the deal. Okay, meaning this. Hey, Faa'vae, I got my podcast. This is my brand deck, right? Normally a brand deck is created and it's forwarded to someone like myself before we even get on the call. Okay. And the reason being, it's technically, in this case, it'll be a sponsorship deck. Okay.
Mhm.
And so what you have to prove to me is that we share the same customer. Okay. And this is what I've been able to mentor a lot of, even with the local football teams, because obviously a lot of our poly kids play. So I've been approached by several different leagues. Hey, Faa'vae, can you sponsor the league and this, that? And what I try to tell them is explain to them from a business standpoint is this. The question you have to answer is, does your viewer, your listener, wear Island Ave? Okay? If in fact you can check that, then you have to prove to me, okay, cool, we share the same customer. So now there's synergy, now there's value there. Then you have to prove to me from a numbers point of view. Okay, we do share the same customer because I noticed that a lot of those that were out of NAB on the West Coast, and you start to give me the analytics. And the second thing is listeners, viewers. Now you got to give me the numbers. Okay, on average, on a daily basis and on a monthly basis, we get 20 million viewers, right? So now your brand, Island Nav, will be in front of 20 million viewers, right? And then the last thing is you have to show me the ROI on my investment.
Yeah, return
So
of
if you're
investment.
coming to me, right, with a sponsorship deck, and you've proven that we have the same customer, you have the numbers, viewers and listeners, then you have to say, okay, well, what's the number? It's 20 grand. Okay, 20 grand. Okay, 20 grand for what? I'm gonna wear your clothing. Your logo's gonna be here. Anytime we do events, this is what you're gonna get out of 20K, right? Okay, cool. But what would be the return on investment from a sales point? Are you telling me that people will go online and buy? Are you telling me our same customer will walk into Nordstrom and buy? Like, how do I get the 20K back?
Nice.
Right? And so this is the same thing that I've said from a business standpoint for some of our local football leagues. Just from a business standpoint, I talked to some of the presidents that actually run some of these leagues. And I said, first off, you gotta ask yourself when you're going to, any of these Samoan businesses, do you guys share the same customer? Right? Because one of those was in Vegas. I'm like, I'm based in LA. Like, how do we even have the same customer? So, and then when they sent the sponsorship deck, it was a one pager. Like, right? So you're telling me to dish out 5, 10, 20 grand. Look, what is this? You didn't even take the time to create a legitimate sponsorship deck, right? So you have to prove that when you approach someone like myself, or any business for that matter,
Correct.
what's the ROI on their investment, right? But that goes back to you knowing your business model, knowing your analytics, Because I could say, okay, if you got a 20 million viewers or listeners, okay, show me. Where do you get these analytics, this data from, right? And then if in fact you got 20 million viewers or listeners, what's the conversion rate of the 20 million viewers or listeners? And then show me those analytics. Okay, 10% out of the 20 million, we convert that, and then this is our ROI from a financial standpoint. Oh, okay, cool. So now there's actually analytics, there's data backing up you want the 20 grand. You get what I'm saying? So hopefully that answers, again, your question as you start to, approach different, sponsors or whatnot. But what I always say is there's other podcasts that, they do merch. What's the other, I forget the other form. Oh, subscriptions, you charge $9 a month. I just did a podcast, the Hummy, and, there's apps in which you can start to, get people to subscribe. It's $9 a month. You do the math, 250,000 people are paying you $9 a month. Like it's a numbers game at that point, right? And then not only that, in terms of, the value of the guests that you have on the podcast. How do you differentiate yourself? If in fact you want to be the next Joe Rogan, then there's the blueprint. What type of guest that you're bringing on that's similar to Joe Rogan, right? So I always said success leaves clues. If Joe Rogan is, obviously he's the behemoth in terms of podcasts. What is his business model? How is he monetizing that platform? Does he have merch? Does he have sponsors? Does he do private events? So like, what is that business? And it always goes back to you knowing the business model. I'll be launching a podcast soon because I did it in I think it was right before the pandemic. Just been too busy. But before I even do that, I want to make sure that the monetization of the platform is set to go before we launch.
Yeah.
So the way it's being monetized, the views are being monetized, right? Before I even decide to go out and be like, approach a liquor company or a food company, say, you know what, I think you should sponsor because this is our data. Because eventually, once you start to operate at that level, they're going to want to know the data. They're going to want to know your numbers, right? And you got to be able to submit those numbers, and it has to come from a credible source that backs those numbers up.
So real quick, so do you think that a following, like let's say somebody with like, what is a good number of followers in order for somebody like yourself or just regular business people that intrigues them? They're not even business people. They just have so much followers. Does that even help in a like content creators and stuff? Say somebody has like millions of followers for their content. Yeah. And then, because it's happened. I've seen that a lot from different content creators, right? And all these buyers come and purchase them. Does that matter? I guess that's my question. Does followers matter in for people who want to go ahead and sponsor like yourself to get somebody to wear your merch, your product to showcase to the millions of followers that they have?
I mean, to me, from a business standpoint, a following only matters if in fact you can monetize it. Mm-hmm. And the only reason why I say that, I'll give you an example. There was a kid that came to us that had a brand at the time. And this is probably 2-3 years ago. And he probably had like 250,000 followers or something like that. It was a solid following online. Okay. And then when I noticed that once we started to put out, because we saw the back end of how the orders were coming in, because we were filling it at the shop, he couldn't sell 10 t-shirts. Right. But this is the reality. It's like, so you can have 1 million followers, but how many of those, the $1 million question, okay, is the conversion rate. How can you get those followers to convert? Okay. And so truth be told, what's happening now, in all honesty, the whole influencer marketing, it's almost like the gig is up.
Yeah.
Because what happened was once they started to really like go that route, a lot of brands started to go that route. They started to see, bigger brands started to see that the return on investment wasn't worth it. Because this kid may have had 5, 10, 20 million followers. So they give them a bag. Oh, I just need you to post and give you 100 racks. And they go, okay, so what's the return on 100? I gave the guy 100 grand. He posted and I got 5 sales. So was it worth it?
No.
Right. So just think about it. Like I really, because of the fact that I kind of see it from afar, and I always look at everything from a business standpoint. And I've had several, polys come up to me, oh man, I wear the gear and stuff like that. I say, bro, unless you're Justin Bieber, unless you're Taylor Swift,
Yeah.
unless you're Kanye West, unless you're Drake, that could literally put something on.
And people will
And
buy
people
it.
go over there and literally try to figure out what shirt Drake is wearing and what jacket Taylor Swift, and they're over here turning the screen sideways to figure out the brand. You don't have purchasing power like that.
Yeah.
So in essence, it's really going to be a favor that you're really wearing, right? So I always go back, it's what's the conversion rate of those millions or whatever followers? I don't know. That's
So
something
it depends on the audience that follows. If they're
like,
all like Island Avenue, followers, for let's just say it's like 5,000 of them, does that even matter?
how many people are, how many of the 5,000 are buying?
Yeah.
That's the $1 million question, right?
And
So
what if it's like a 50%? Like let's just say half.
if it's 50%, that's great.
That's still good number, right?
Yeah, that's very good. That's very good. Because you just do the math. That's 2,500, right? 2,500 people buy. And think about it. If you got a $100 item, you do the math, right?
Yeah.
It's a matter of numbers at that point. That's a great conversion. So I really don't look at the following. I always go, let me look up under the hood and say, what is the conversion rate of this specific content creator, influencer, or whatnot, right? Will they drive sales? I don't know. What type of purchasing power does this person have? I don't know. The only thing that I've seen so far is someone like, and again, my expectation to people is like Taylor Swift. She literally has purchasing power in real time. Like something, and boom, you'll see the shit go, right? So unless you got something like that, there's nothing else that'll impress me after that, right? So looking at it from a business standpoint, you always have to ask yourself, as you approach a lot of these brands, as someone like myself, those are the business questions that you're going to have to ask. What is my conversion rate of however many subscribers that I have? And you're going to have to prove that. Because someone like me, I was like, okay, send me the data. And once again, it has to come from a credible source. Because if, in fact, I'm going to sponsor the podcast, I got to make sure that the money that I put out, there has to be an ROI on those funds.
There you have it, Coconuts. From the guru himself, man, putting us on game. And I'm so grateful and thank you for answering my questions, because the audience that I have are just people that are like entrepreneur startups. Those that are curious or still working a 9-to-5 and want to be like, man, I really want to do something or follow my passion. That's all the guest hosts that I bring on is for people to listen and hear, like, what is your why and how did you start, what put you on game, or whatever avenue that you decide to go under, man. Thanks for tuning into the Why-Oos podcast episode. Don't forget to check out our website at www.whyoos.com. It's because of you that we can keep this going. Thank you in advance. See you on the next one.
Man, again, so thank you so much for having me on the Oos podcast. It's been an honor, pleasure to be able to share this time with you, as well as Wifey and all the viewers and listeners in terms of the Island Ave story. Look out for our holiday collection that's going to be dropping in some of the local Nordstroms here in Los Angeles, as well as on islandavela.com. We also are setting up TikTok shop as well. We should be launching the week of Black Friday, which I believe is November 25th. So definitely look out for that. And I want to drop a bombshell right here on the Oos podcast. We just landed the FUBU collab. So we're hoping to, there we go. There we go. We had to drop it on my Oos podcast. So we just solidified that. So we're literally working against time to make sure that we launch that Q1 of 2025. And then, as you guys have seen, we've been working on the Nike collab. It's going on almost a year now. And so we're excited about that. All goes well. We'll launch that collab come API month, which is May of 2025. So we have a lot of great upcoming projects. It's very, very exciting. But I never lose sight of when I'm asked to speak on a podcast like this, because I know it's a direct connection to our people. And I know they need to see us together, to have these conversations, to be able to provide gems as they go on their entrepreneur journey. So thank you all again. Follow the brand if you haven't, at Island Avenue on Instagram as well as TikTok. You'll see everything there. But please, man, continue. You guys contact me there. Contact me through the Oos. I'm an open book in terms of trying to be of value and provide knowledge for all our folks that are going down this journey, this entrepreneur journey, because for the most part, it's been a journey in which there's not a lot of us, there's not a plethora of us. However, we're really starting to navigate as a community within entrepreneurship, and that's a great thing, right? That's a great thing. So thank you again, Luz, for your time and energy and your medium, this podcast, to be able to tell our stories. All the best, continue to elevate our people, and then hopefully maybe in 6 months, we'll do a recap, see where we're at.
And I'm Wa'us.
I'm Faa'vae with Island Dad.
And we out, baby.
We out, baby.
Why-use, tune in and vibe the drive. Why-use, why-use.